Joining us, MS Now political analyst, Democratic strategist and pollster Cornell Belcher, Jake Sherman, and former Senator Barbara Boxer still with us. Cornell, we'll start with you. Certainly, in recent months in particular, Democrats have really leaned in on this argument, saying that President Trump, his businesses, his families have made money, an inappropriate amount of money, potentially through corruption, while the rest of the nation is left behind. Do you think, do the numbers back it up, will that be an effective argument this fall?
Well, there's no silver bullet. But look, and the senator will remember this, the whole culture of corruption is something that Democrats use very effectively against George Bush going into a midterm election. But it's about connecting the dots for voters around what corruption means for them. You also notice that the majority of Americans will also believe that the system is rigged. And you see a lot of Democrats running, both from the moderate Democrats, but also on the left, running around this idea that the system is rigged for billionaires and is therefore working for billionaires. And that's a part of the corruption, that you do have a system that seems to benefit the well-placed and special interests and the billionaires. And whether you're a middle class, mom, in the suburbs, or you're a working class voter out in the rural parts of Iowa, there's this belief that you're struggling to get ahead and the system isn't working for you anymore, and that it's being rigged and it is all corrupt. And part of the sort of a winning message, I believe, is sort of taking on this corruption and taking on the rigging of the system, is getting in the way and blocking the American dream and your ability to get ahead, because the system is rigged and corrupt for the billionaires.
Yeah, most senior Democrats I speak to say, look, affordability, that's still issue number one. But they do think corruption could really play this November. But Senator Boxer, there is polling that suggests that Americans, they're not really differentiating as to who's corrupt. They just think every politician's corrupt. They think Republicans are corrupt. They think Democrats are corrupt. And no matter what the facts may say. So, yet at the same time, we have seen corruption really be an effective argument. We just saw it in Hungary. There are many analysts who believe that's what really brought down Viktor Orban there. Do you think Democrats can press this issue this November? Do you think it breaks through?
100%. I agree with Cornell. Here's the thing. Corruption is one thing. And you look at it, who's benefiting from it? The president, his kids, and we could go through, their net worth and everything else he's doing with our money, frankly, to build a ballroom, to do everything he's doing, giving it to his friends, sole contracts without open bidding. But here's the deal. If people were doing well, that would be one thing. They would look at it and say, oh, I'm not happy. But when you look at a family right out in the open, being so corrupt, making so much money, and you are having trouble filling up your tank with gas, putting importantly nutritious food on your table, you're scared about the rent going up. Now it's very powerful in terms of a political message. Last thing I'll say is I saw Hakeem Jeffries, who's such a wonderful speaker. I think he said there were 3 C's. He said, corruption, costs, and conflict in Iran. They say keep your messages to 3. Man, that's powerful for Dems.
Yeah, that's pretty good 3. Jake, and Democrats are certainly making this point. We played Senator Blumenthal in recent days. We've had Senator Ossoff make similar cases. AOC does it frequently. Republicans, is there a response to this? Is there any attempt to defend what they're seeing from the White House?
No, not really. It's just their message is everyone's a communist and we need to just get the communists out of everywhere, and we're better than communists is their basic message. And I'm not oversimplifying. That's what it is. Mike Johnson says it's common sense over crazy or common sense over communism. Those are his 2 big lines. And we'll see if that works. There's no question the Democratic Party has been dragged to the left. That doesn't help people. Some moderate Democrats, some places. It doesn't help them always beat Republicans. But again, I keep coming back to this one simple point. Historically, Democrats are going to win the majority. It's not happened twice that the party out of power takes back the House in American history. 96 during Clinton's impeachment, 2002 after 9/11. So the winds are blowing in Republicans' faces. They need to pitch a perfect game to not lose the majority. And tell me out there if you think that they're pitching a perfect game. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, obviously, each individual race will be fought and won on their own, right? Like that's just the reality of it. And you can't make assumptions about every race at once. But if you're looking at the macro picture, you'd much rather be a Democrat than a Republican. That's just the reality of it. And I will just say this last point. I mean, Congress, yes, there's a lot of, in polling, we see a lot of data about the president's crypto dealings and everything that Senator Boxer mentioned. But Congress is, I wouldn't say equally guilty, but they haven't cleaned up their house either. I mean, there's been a lot of attempts to institute a trading ban for members of Congress. It's gotten very political, where for a while it seemed like it was bipartisan, the effort to get rid of it. That has fallen apart for a million reasons. Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries deserve blame in that scenario of that going nowhere. And maybe this election they skate by, but the fact that members of Congress can trade stocks while they're in office it just doesn't pass the straight face test, according to basically every piece of public information in polling that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Totally agree. And some anti-corruption measures could be put in place if Democrats do take control of Congress in November. But to Jake, I'll answer your question. No, Republicans are not pitching a perfect game. If you're reviving the Red Scare as your best campaign argument here in July of the year of our Lord 2026, no, that's not necessarily going to be great. Cornell, back to you, though, about Democrats, because we also see polls that, man, despite how poorly Trump is doing, Democrats' brand also, still really tarnished in the public's eyes. Now, there is a sense, though, that that's more of a problem for 2028 than 2026, that for this midterms, it might just be enough to simply not be Donald Trump.
Look, I mean, it's politics 101. And going back to the sort of historical point is you have to make this a referendum on the president. And this can't be about Democrats. And thus far, Democrats have done a really good job of making this a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republicans because they're in power. Now, classically, that's what midterms are about. And if you look at Donald Trump's job approval, look, Washington Post poll had him, last week. He's underwater with non-college white voters, right? And that were plus 30 points for him in 2024. So you continue to make this a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republicans in power, and it does look well for Democrats. Now, can they have a sea change election, like sort of a real sort of humongous sea change election? I think their brand issues do sort of put a cap on their ability to run up the score in some places. But if you look at every off-year election and every special election that we've had thus far, their brand not being great has not hurt them in any special election where they've overperformed.